My sister is twice the woman you'll ever be. Alicia! My mother's voice sliced through the cheerful buzz of Thanksgiving dinner like a sharp knife. 23 relatives turned toward me, forks frozen midair as if witnessing a slow-motion disaster. I calmly set down my wine glass, keeping my hand steady even as that familiar sting of humiliation crept in. The golden turkey in the center of the table almost seemed to mock me. Perfect, polished, just like everything else in this house that only looked flawless on the surface. Wonderful, I replied evenly, my voice cutting through the silence. Then she can return the $80,000 I paid for her wedding. The quiet that followed was absolute. Even Uncle Robert, who never missed a chance to brag about his fishing trips, sat motionless, his mouth half open. My father started coughing on his cranberry sauce, and my mother's face went pale. Vanessa, my sister, looked like she'd seen a ghost. My name is Alicia. I'm 29 years old and work as a procurement manager at Oaklight Publishing in Portland, Oregon. For the past 8 years, I've been steadily climbing the corporate ladder at one of the most respected publishing houses on the West Coast, negotiating million-dollar contracts and managing budgets big enough to run small towns. Yet in my mother's eyes, I've never quite measured up to my younger sister Vanessa, the family's golden child who could do no wrong. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. While Vanessa spent her teenage years sneaking out to parties and dating boys our parents disapproved of, I stayed buried in textbooks, earning straight A's and working part-time jobs to save for college. When Vanessa dropped out of community college after one semester to chase her dream of becoming an influencer, I was graduating summa cum laude with a business degree and starting my first corporate job. But none of that seemed to matter. Vanessa was beautiful, charismatic, and full of life. She had that effortless charm that made people adore her. I, on the other hand, was the practical one, the predictable, daughter who sent birthday cards on time and remembered anniversaries, yet somehow never inspired the same pride in my mother's eyes. The pattern had been set for years. Vanessa would make reckless choices, cause turmoil, and somehow end up as the helpless victim. I was always the one expected to fix things, usually by opening my wallet. My parents never asked directly, but the hints were always clear. Vanessa's struggling. Vanessa needs help. Alicia can surely manage something. And like a fool, I always did. 6 months ago, when Vanessa announced her engagement to Tyler, a wannabe musician who'd never kept a steady job, I should have known what was coming. My mother's eyes gleamed as she started planning the wedding of the century. She mentioned the cost of venues, photographers, catering, all with that familiar sigh about how tight things had become since my father's accounting firm lost 2 major clients. I should have refused then. I should have said no when the requests began piling up. But family is family, and somehow I ended up writing check after check, convincing myself it was all for Vanessa's happiness. The venue deposit, dress alterations, flowers, photographer, and the honeymoon suite in Cabo, $80,000 later, I finally understood I had been taken advantage of. Sitting at the Thanksgiving table, surrounded by extended family, I listened to my mother once again praise Vanessa while downplaying my accomplishments. Something inside me gave way. The words escaped before I could stop them, and there was no undoing it. The truth was out, served alongside the sweet potatoes and stuffing. The reaction spread across the room like spilled wine on white linen. Aunt Patricia dropped her fork. My cousin David's wife clutched his arm, her eyes wide. My grandmother, bless her, was the first to speak. 80,000? She whispered, pressing a hand to her chest. Good Lord, Alicia. My mother recovered quickly, her face flushed as she tried to smooth things over. Alicia, this isn't the time or place for that discussion. We have guests? Funny, I replied, taking a slow sip of wine. It seemed appropriate when you were telling these same guests how inadequate I am compared to my sister. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice barely steady. Alicia, you're overreacting. You offered to help with the wedding. No one forced you. Offered? I laughed dryly. Let me refresh your memory. It began with Mom calling in tears because you couldn't afford the venue you'd already paid a deposit on. Then came the dress emergency when you decided the first one wasn't special enough. Then the photographer's cancellation. Then the flower shortage panic. Do you want me to go on? My father set his glass down, his tone serious. Now hold on, Alicia. Your mother and I never asked you to spend that much. You didn't have to, Dad, I replied calmly. You both made it clear. Vanessa's dream wedding was falling apart. The family reputation was at risk, And who else could step in but dependable Alicia? With her stable job and no husband or kids to spend money on? The words hurt even as I said them. At 29, I was the only unmarried one among my cousins. My career success had come at the expense of relationships. While my peers built families, I worked 60-hour weeks and traveled constantly. My mother never let me forget it. I remember you being excited about helping, Vanessa said, sounding defensive. You said you wanted to make my day special. I was excited, I admitted, because I thought I was helping my sister create lasting memories. I believed this could bring our family closer. I thought the effort would be appreciated someday. Sacrifice? My mother repeated, raising her voice. You make it sound like we forced you. You didn't need to, Mom, I said evenly. You had something stronger. Guilt, manipulation, and the promise that one day my help would finally be acknowledged. 6 months later, I found myself sitting here being told I was only half the woman my sister was. 8 years of built-up resentment finally spilled out, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. Every birthday where Vanessa's gifts were celebrated while mine went unnoticed. Every holiday when her new boyfriend was warmly welcomed, while my work achievements were brushed aside as dull. Every family gathering where she was the star and I was the dependable background figure. Vanessa's been through a lot, my mother said, adopting that familiar protective tone. The wedding stress, adjusting to marriage, Tyler's career struggles. She needs our support. And what about what I've been through? I asked. The 70-hour work weeks just to meet your version of family support. The vacations I gave up, the savings I drained, and the sleepless nights wondering if I'd ever be able to buy my own home. My Aunt Patricia cleared her throat awkwardly. Maybe we should change the subject. This is family business. No, I said firmly. It became everyone's business the moment Mom decided to turn family dinner into a stage to publicly shame me. If she wants to expose family issues here, then everyone deserves the full story. Vanessa's husband, Tyler, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke. Look, we never asked for that much money. Things just came up. Things came up because you both had champagne tastes on a beer budget, I replied. Instead of cutting back or waiting until you could afford your dream wedding, you let me fund it. It wasn't lost on me that this confrontation was happening on Thanksgiving, a day supposedly about gratitude. For years, I had been thankful for the chance to help my family, thankful that I could contribute, thankful for the small bits of recognition I occasionally received. But I was beginning to realize gratitude only holds meaning when it's mutual. My mother's face turned from red to pale, and I could almost see her mind racing, figuring out how to control the narrative again, how to spin this in Vanessa's favor, how to make me seem unreasonable. But deep down, I knew those days were done. The tension in the room was suffocating. My cousin Jennifer awkwardly offered more wine, her voice strained and uneasy. The beautiful feast my mother had worked on for days sat untouched, forgotten after my revelation. I think there's been a misunderstanding, my father said cautiously, probably calculating the numbers in his head. 80,000 seems too much for a wedding. Would you like to see the receipts, Dad? I asked, unlocking my phone and scrolling to the folder where I'd kept every record. 25,000 for the venue. 12,000 for catering upgrades because the standard package wasn't enough. 8,000 for the photographer Vanessa wanted after firing the first one. 5,000 for flowers when she decided roses weren't special enough. 4,000 for dress alterations and the veil. 3,000 for the honeymoon suite upgrade. And that's just the main expenses. With every number I listed, Vanessa sank deeper into her chair. Tyler stayed silent, likely realizing for the first time how much my family's generosity had truly cost. The wedding was 60,000, my mother objected weakly. You couldn't have paid 80. You're forgetting the honeymoon, I replied. The flights to Cabo, resort upgrades, excursions, shopping, plus the engagement party, the bridal shower, and all the last-minute emergencies. My grandmother shook her head slowly. In my day, people married at the courthouse and had cake at home. All this extravagance is foolish. Grandma's right, I said. But I was foolish too. Foolish enough to think my sacrifices mattered. I believed that helping Vanessa find happiness would mean something. That maybe, if I proved how much I cared, I'd finally earn the same love and respect she receives effortlessly. The words lingered in the room like smoke from an extinguished candle. This was the core of it, the pain I had carried for nearly 29 years. The constant sense that no matter what I achieved, how reliable or successful I became, I would always be the second-choice daughter. That's not fair, Vanessa said softly, tears filling her eyes. I never asked you to compete with me. You didn't have to, I answered. The competition was built into our family from the very start. There was always perfect Vanessa, who could do nothing wrong, and practical Alicia, who existed to fix the problems. My mother's expression hardened. I love both my daughters equally. Do you? I asked calmly. Because your actions suggest otherwise? When was the last time you told your friends about my promotion? Or asked about my life without turning the conversation toward Vanessa's latest story? When was the last time you defended me the way you just defended her? The silence that followed was heavy. Around the table, relatives avoided eye contact, focusing on their plates and hands, anything to escape the family tension unfolding before them. This wasn't the Thanksgiving anyone had imagined. I think you're being unfair, my mother finally said, though her voice wavered. I'm being truthful, I replied. Maybe for the first time in years. And honesty can feel unfair when you've been living in denial. Tyler suddenly pushed his chair back. I think we should go. Sit down. Tyler, Vanessa snapped, the first real emotion I'd seen from her all evening. This is my family, she continued. A family discussing private financial matters in public, he said, clearly uneasy. Private matters that became public when my role was erased from the story, I replied. If you want to leave, go ahead, but don't pretend it's from moral outrage. My father rubbed his temples, looking every bit his 62 years. How did we get here? This was supposed to be a nice dinner. We got here, I said, because someone chose this dinner to elevate one daughter while diminishing the other. Because I finally reached the limit of being treated as a lesser family member, despite being the one who always shows up. Contributes and sacrifices. Alicia, my Aunt Patricia said gently, family issues are complex. Maybe this isn't the best time or place. I've tried the private route for years, I answered. The result? $80,000 spent on a wedding, and a Thanksgiving dinner where I'm told I'm half the woman my sister is. Clearly, privacy hasn't solved anything. The truth was, this moment had been building for months. Every time I opened my bank account and saw my savings disappear, every time I declined social plans because I couldn't afford them after paying for Vanessa's dream wedding, every time my mother mentioned how happy Vanessa was in her marriage, while asking when I'd finally settle down. The final straw came 2 weeks ago when Vanessa sent the wedding photos. Beautiful professional pictures from her perfect day. But no thank you note. No acknowledgement of how that perfect day was funded. Just a text message. Aren't these amazing? Tyler and I are thinking of having a small first anniversary party. Just family. That's when I knew this dinner was inevitable. I knew the truth would come out sooner or later. I just didn't expect it to happen so dramatically. Looking around the table at my family's stunned faces, I realized I didn't regret it. The truth was uncomfortable and messy, but it was finally exposed. No more pretending everything was fine. No more suppressing resentment for the sake of peace. Now the question was, what would happen next? The silence dragged on until my cousin David's 5-year-old daughter broke it by asking loudly, Mommy, why is everyone so quiet? Did somebody die? A few nervous laughs followed, but the tension stayed thick in the room. My mother quickly stepped in to regain control. Let's all take a deep breath and remember. It's Thanksgiving, she said, her voice unnaturally cheerful. We're here to appreciate what we have, not revisit old problems. Old problems? I repeated, feeling my patience slipping. Mom, this happened 6 months ago. The final payment for Vanessa's honeymoon cleared in July. How is that old? Alicia, please, my father interrupted. Can we discuss this later? Your aunt and uncle drove 3 hours to be here. They sure did, I replied. And they got quite a show. But don't worry, Dad. I wouldn't want to embarrass the family further by continuing to tell the truth. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was enlightening. Where are you going? Vanessa asked, her voice rising with panic. Home. I suddenly don't feel hungry anymore. Alicia, don't be dramatic, my mother called after me as I moved toward the coat closet. You're overreacting. I turned to face the table. 23 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, cautious and silent. Overreacting? Let me tell you what's out of proportion, I said steadily. It's expecting your daughter to pay for her sister's wedding and then publicly humiliating her half a year later. It's taking $80,000 from someone and never once acknowledging the sacrifice. It's spending 29 years making one daughter feel inadequate while relying on her to fund everyone else's happiness. Tyler looked pale. $80,000 is a lot of money, he said quietly. Thank you, Tyler. I'm glad someone finally recognizes that. We didn't know it was that much, he added, glancing at Vanessa. You told me your parents were helping with the wedding. Vanessa's face turned red. They were helping. Alicia is family. It's the same thing. No, it's not, I said firmly. When parents help with a wedding, it's a gift between generations. When a sister drains her savings, it's a loan, one no one seems to intend to repay or even mention. We never said we wouldn't pay you back, Vanessa protested. You never said you would either, I replied. In 6 months, not once. Not when you showed off your new furniture, or when you went wine tasting last month, or when Tyler bought that $3,000 guitar 2 weeks ago. Tyler's eyes widened. That guitar cost $3,000. Maybe I should have waited if we owe you that much. You think? I said with a trace of sarcasm. But don't worry. According to Mom, your wife is twice the woman I'll ever be. I'm sure she'll sort it out. My grandmother cleared her throat. Alicia, dear, please sit down. Let's talk about this calmly. Grandma, I love you, I said softly, but there's nothing left to discuss. I've spent 8 years as the family's ATM while being treated as its disappointment. I'm done. You're not a disappointment, my father said, but his tone lacked confidence. When was the last time you called just to ask how I was doing, Dad? Or asked about my job without changing the subject? When was the last time either of you visited my apartment or showed any interest that didn't involve money? The questions hung in silence, unanswered, because we all knew the truth. Somewhere along the line, my parents' relationship with me became transactional. I was the dependable daughter who fixed problems with her wallet, but not the one they celebrated or emotionally valued. That's not true, my mother said weakly. Isn't it? I asked. When I got promoted to senior procurement manager last year, what was your reaction? You said, "That's nice, honey." Did you hear Vanessa's thinking about starting a blog? I paused. And when I closed the biggest supplier contract in company history, what did you say then? Silence, again. You asked if I thought Vanessa and Tyler needed new living room furniture because theirs looked worn out in her Instagram photos. My Aunt Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Alicia, I'm sure your parents are proud of you, she said. Are they? Because I haven't seen any sign of that pride in years, I replied. What I have seen is a family that gladly accepts my financial help while treating my sister like she's extraordinary simply for existing. Vanessa's had a hard time, my mother said defensively. We've all had hard times, Mom, I answered. The difference is that I faced mine without expecting the family to rescue me financially or emotionally every time. I don't expect anyone to rescue me, Vanessa said, raising her voice. Don't you? When you couldn't afford your dream wedding, who did you call? When you needed a co-signer for your apartment, who helped? When Tyler's band needed money for equipment, who did you turn to? And now when you want a first anniversary party, who do you think will end up paying for it? We haven't asked you for money for the party, Vanessa protested. Not yet, I said, but I can already see where this is going. Mom's mentally planning it, and Tyler just realized how much our family spent on your wedding. How long before the hints start? Before the guilt trips begin? My cousin David's wife leaned over and whispered something to him. He nodded with a serious look, probably thinking about setting limits for their own financial boundaries in the future. You're being unfair? My mother said again, though her voice had lost strength. I'm being honest, I replied. And the truth is, I've been enabling this family's bad habits for years, always saying yes, always giving up what I need for others. But that ends now. What does that mean? Vanessa asked nervously. It means the Bank of Alicia is closed. It means I'm done being everyone's backup plan. From now on, if someone in this family needs money, they'll have to find another solution. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt different. It felt final. 3 weeks later, I was still replaying that Thanksgiving dinner conversation in my mind when my phone rang at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated, tempted to let it go to voicemail. We hadn't spoken since that night, and I wasn't eager to change that. But curiosity won, and I answered on the 4th ring. Alicia, Vanessa's voice was small and shaky. I need to talk to you. If this is an apology for Thanksgiving, you're 3 weeks late. If it's about money, the answer is no. It's not about money. Well, not exactly. Can we meet somewhere, please? It's important. Something in her tone made me pause. She sounded genuinely upset, not her usual dramatic self. What's wrong? I can't explain over the phone. Please, Alicia. I know you're angry, but I really need my sister right now. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a downtown coffee shop. When I arrived, Vanessa was already there, hunched over a half-empty cup, dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted. You look terrible, I said, taking the seat across from her. Thanks, she replied flatly. That's exactly what I needed to hear. What's going on, Vanessa? And please don't tell me you and Tyler need money for counseling. Tyler left me. Her words hit me hard. Whatever I had expected, it wasn't that. What? When? 2 days ago. He packed a bag and moved in with his bandmate Derek. Said he needed space to think. I studied her face, searching for signs of exaggeration, but all I saw was real pain. What happened? The money stuff really got to him. After Thanksgiving, he started asking about our finances, how much you paid for things. He went through the wedding costs and realized almost everything was funded by you. The venue, food, flowers, photographer, everything. He said it made him feel like our marriage was built on a lie. A flicker of sympathy for Tyler surprised me. It wasn't a lie, Vanessa. You two love each other, do we? Because while I told Tyler that Mom and Dad helped with wedding costs, he assumed they could afford it because Dad's business was doing well. When he found out the truth, that you drained your savings for us, he felt betrayed. You did deceive him, I said quietly. I didn't mean to. I just didn't want him to feel bad about accepting help. I thought once we were married, it wouldn't matter where the money came from. I took a sip of coffee, processing everything. So Tyler left because he found out I paid for your wedding. He left because he said he doesn't know who I really am. He said, if you could lie about something that big, what else are you lying about? He started questioning everything about our relationship. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler left Vanessa for the same reason I confronted her at Thanksgiving, because we'd both realized we'd been living with a version of her that wasn't entirely real. I'm sorry this happened, I said. And I truly meant it, despite everything. I never wanted to see Vanessa's marriage collapse. Are you? She asked. Because part of me thinks you're glad this happened, that you finally get to be right about Tyler not being good enough, and about us being careless. I never said Tyler wasn't good enough, I replied. I said you two weren't ready to get married if you couldn't afford your own wedding. Same thing. No, it's not. And no, I'm not happy your marriage is falling apart. I'm sad for you. But I can't say I'm surprised. Lies always catch up eventually. Vanessa's eyes welled up. I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer, okay? Did you know this would happen when you brought up the money at Thanksgiving? Did you know it would destroy my marriage? I paused before answering. I knew Tyler would eventually learn the truth about who paid for what. I thought he already knew. Most couples discuss their finances before getting married. That's not what I asked. No, Vanessa, I didn't intend to ruin your marriage. I was angry after being humiliated in front of the whole family and reacted emotionally. But I don't regret the truth coming out. Secrets like that always end up poisoning relationships. So what am I supposed to do now? She asked quietly. You need to be honest with your husband and rebuild trust. Take responsibility for your choices instead of waiting for others to fix them. I can't afford the apartment without Tyler's income. And there it was, the real reason for this coffee shop meeting. No matter how much she claimed it wasn't about money with my family, it always came back to that. I'm not giving you money for rent, Vanessa. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. But the answer is still no. Then what should I do? Move back in with Mom and Dad? You're 26, college educated. You should be able to support yourself like most adults do. I have a job. I work at the boutique. 20 hours a week selling overpriced jewelry to tourists isn't a job, it's a pastime. You need a real career with steady income and actual independence. Vanessa stared into her coffee. Tyler said the same thing. That I act like a child expecting everyone else to take care of me? Tyler's not wrong. You really think I'm that pathetic? I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years, saw past the perfect image to the insecure woman underneath. I think you're intelligent and capable. But you've been enabled all your life to avoid taking responsibility. You could accomplish so much if you stopped relying on others to solve your problems. And I think you've been jealous of me forever, and you're enjoying seeing me fail." The words stung, because there was some truth to them. Not about enjoying her failure, but about jealousy. I had envied how easily things came to Vanessa, how she always drew people's affection and attention. "Maybe I have been jealous," I admitted. "But this isn't revenge, Vanessa. It's about consequences. You made your choices, and now you're living with them. With no help from my family? You've had plenty, $80,000 worth, plus years of emotional support and special treatment. Maybe it's time you learn to stand on your own." Vanessa stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "I should have known you'd be like this, cold and practical, just like always. And maybe you should learn to be honest and responsible. For once." She walked away without another word, leaving me with 2 half-empty coffee cups and the uneasy satisfaction of finally saying what I'd held back for years. But driving home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling this was only the beginning. I was right. 2 weeks after the coffee shop confrontation, the calls began. First, my mother, her tone calm but careful, explained that Vanessa was struggling and maybe I could offer some sisterly support. Then my father called, more direct, asking if I could help with Vanessa's rent, just until she's back on her feet. I said no to both. Next came my Aunt Patricia, who'd heard through the family grapevine. She suggested I was being harsh and that families should stick together in hard times. Then my cousin David's wife sent a polite text about how family matters more than money. I refused them all. But my grandmother's call nearly broke my resolve. "Alicia, dear," she said softly, her voice full of that same warmth that once soothed every childhood hurt. "I know you're upset with your sister, but she's really struggling. She's lost weight, looks terrible, and she's talking about moving back home. Your parents are worried sick. Grandma, I love you, but this isn't my problem to fix. She's your sister. She's my adult sister who needs to learn to care for herself. Don't you think you're being a little hard on her? She's made mistakes, but who hasn't?" It was gentle manipulation wrapped in concern, and it almost worked. "Grandma," I said, "would you think less of me if I told you I'm tired of being the family's financial safety net?" A pause. "Oh, sweetheart. Is that what this is about?" "Partly. But it's also about the fact that every time Vanessa faces the results of her actions, someone rescues her. How will she ever learn responsibility if we keep bailing her out?" "You sound very wise, dear. But wisdom can sound awfully cold." After that call, doubt crept in. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should help her one more time. Maybe resentment had clouded my judgment. Then came the call that changed everything. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday when Vanessa's name lit up my phone. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Alicia," she said, her voice flat and tired, not pleading. "What is it, Vanessa?" "I need to tell you something about the wedding money." "What about it?" "Tyler and I went through all the receipts and bank records. We're trying to figure out exactly how much we owe you so we can start paying you back. That caught me off guard." "Okay." "The thing is," she continued, "we found some discrepancies. The amounts don't match what you said at Thanksgiving." My stomach dropped. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The honeymoon expenses, for one," she said. "You claimed you paid for our flights and resort upgrades in Cabo, but I have the credit card statements right here. Tyler paid for them himself. $7,000, all on his card." I felt the color drain from my face. That couldn't be true. "It is," she continued, "because I'm looking at the statements right now. Tyler's been paying the minimum balance on that debt for 6 months. We've also been covering our apartment this whole time, not you. And the engagement party? Mom and Dad paid for that." The room began to spin. "Vanessa, I have receipts for everything," I insisted. "Do you?" She replied calmly. "Because Tyler and I would like to see them. We just want to repay you for what we truly owe, but we need the correct numbers." My mind raced. How could this be wrong? I had tracked every expense carefully, convinced I'd carried the financial weight of their wedding. But now Vanessa was saying that half of those costs weren't even mine. "Can you email me the statements you're looking at?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Already done." "Check your email." I put her on speaker and opened my laptop. Sure enough, there were multiple messages from Vanessa with attachments. Bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts, all neatly labeled. As I opened each document, a cold realization crept in. Tyler had paid for much more than I'd thought. The honeymoon costs I'd resented were fully charged to his card. Several vendor payments I believed I'd made had actually come from my parents' account. "Vanessa," I said slowly, "I need to check my own records." "There might have been some confusion." "Confusion about what?" she asked. "About who paid for what?" "Give me a day to review everything." After we hung up, I spent 3 hours going through every receipt, bank statement, and transaction from the past year. What I discovered made me feel sick. My actual contribution to Vanessa's wedding was $32,000, not $80,000. Still significant, but far less than the crushing figure I had carried for months. The other expenses were real but had merged in my mind into one enormous sum. Tyler had shouldered more than anyone realized. My parents had contributed more than I'd remembered. And I had been angry based on incomplete, inaccurate information. The truth hit me hard. I'd embarrassed my sister in front of our entire family over numbers that were wrong. I'd damaged her marriage by revealing financial details that weren't even accurate. I had painted myself as the victim of family exploitation, when the reality was much more complicated. Alone in my apartment at midnight, surrounded by receipts and the ruins of my self-righteous anger, I realized I'd made a serious mistake. My frustration had been justified, but my facts had not. In my rush to defend myself, I might have destroyed my sister's life over a misunderstanding I'd created. The worst part was not knowing how I got it so wrong. Had I been so eager to feel wronged that I exaggerated my contributions? Had resentment distorted my memory to make my anger feel valid? I needed to call Vanessa, to apologize, to explain, to make things right. But first, I had to understand how I'd convinced myself I'd given her $50,000 more than I had. Because if I could be so mistaken about something this important, what else in my life had I viewed through the same warped lens of resentment? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a calculator, and a stack of documents, piecing together how I'd built this illusion about my sister's wedding costs. The truth was unsettling. I had tracked the expenses, but somewhere along the way, my anger had taken over the accounting. Every time I felt ignored or undervalued by my family, I unconsciously added another imagined debt to Vanessa's total. The resentment had compounded like interest, growing more distorted each month. The $7,000 honeymoon charge was real, but I'd only paid for my parents to join for 2 days, not for the couple's entire trip. The engagement party costs were shared between my parents and me, not solely mine. Even some wedding vendor payments had been split in ways I'd forgotten, or perhaps chosen not to remember. By dawn, I finally had a clear picture of the truth. $32,467, still substantial, still worth noting, but nowhere near the burden I'd carried like a badge of martyrdom. I called in sick and drove to Vanessa's apartment. She opened the door in pajamas, her hair unwashed, her eyes red and swollen. She looked worse than she had at the cafe. "I need to apologize," I said immediately. "For what?" she asked coldly. "For being wrong about the money? For humiliating me at Thanksgiving over false numbers? For wrecking my marriage with your righteous anger?" Vanessa stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was a mess. Dishes piled high, laundry strewn about. It wasn't her usual untidiness. It was sadness. "So," she said quietly, "you figured out the real amount." I nodded. $32,467. "I don't know how I ever convinced myself it was $80,000, I admitted. I think I wanted to see myself as a victim so badly that I exaggerated the situation. "Tyler's been trying to call you," she said, settling onto the couch. "He wants to apologize too." "For what?" "He didn't do anything wrong." He left without trying to work things out. When he found out about the money mix-up, he realized he'd acted too quickly. He said his pride got in the way of the marriage. That caught me off guard. "Are you two getting back together?" "I don't know," she said. "He wants to try counseling, but I'm not sure I trust him not to run when things get hard again." I sat across from her, feeling the weight of my mistakes. "Vanessa, I'm sorry. I was angry about a lot of things that had nothing to do with your wedding, and I let that anger twist how I saw everything. You were right about some things. I did let you pay for more than you should have, and I took your help for granted. I should have been honest with Tyler about where the money came from. But I exaggerated the situation, and I was wrong to expose our family drama like that at Thanksgiving." Vanessa looked thoughtful. "Actually, I think I needed to hear some of those things. Maybe not in front of everyone, but I needed them? What do you mean? The part about being enabled, not taking responsibility for myself. Tyler said something similar. Maybe there's truth in it I've been avoiding. I studied her face. Beneath the hurt, there was determination I hadn't seen before. I got a real job, she said. Full-time marketing coordinator at a nonprofit downtown. It doesn't pay much, but it's a start. That's great, Vanessa. And I've been thinking about what you said. About learning to be independent. Maybe you were right. Everyone's been rescuing me, and I need to learn how to rescue myself. A knock at the door interrupted us. Vanessa got up, and to my surprise, Tyler stood there holding flowers, looking uneasy. I'm sorry, he said. I know I should have called first, but I wanted to see if you were okay. Alicia's here, Vanessa said, stepping aside. She came to apologize about the money issue. Tyler's eyes met mine. I owe you an apology, too. I should have been more understanding, and I shouldn't have walked out on my marriage without trying to fix things first. Tyler, you don't owe me anything, I said. I created the confusion with my mistake and my outburst. But you were right about one thing. You and Vanessa should have been honest about your finances from the beginning. If we'd all communicated openly, none of this would have happened. I looked at both of them and saw something unexpected. Growth. They both seemed more mature, as if hardship had made them stronger. Are you two going to be okay? I asked. We're going to try, Vanessa replied. Tyler found a therapist who specializes in couples counseling. Our first session is next week. And I talked to my boss about taking on some freelance work. Tyler added, the band still matters to me, but I need to be more financially responsible. I felt a mix of relief and guilt. Maybe my explosion at Thanksgiving had sparked positive change, but I still regretted my approach. There's one more thing, Vanessa said. I want to pay you back the $32,000. It'll take time, but I'd like to set up a plan. Vanessa, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You were right. I never acknowledged your sacrifice. This is my way of doing that. Her gesture meant more to me than the money ever could. For the first time, Vanessa was taking charge of her life instead of waiting for others to fix it. 2 months later, I was having dinner with my parents when my father brought up what he now called the Thanksgiving incident. Have you talked to your sister lately? He asked, cutting into his salmon. We text pretty often, I said. She and Tyler are making progress in counseling, and she's been paying back the money, small amounts, but regularly. She's serious about it. My mother, usually quiet during recent family moments, finally spoke. I owe you an apology, Alicia. I almost choked on my wine. In 29 years, I couldn't recall my mother ever apologizing. For what? For how I've treated you compared to Vanessa. For taking you for granted. For making you feel undervalued in this family. My father nodded. We both owe you an apology. After Thanksgiving, we reflected on our family dynamic and realized we haven't been fair to you. That wasn't the conversation I expected. Mom, Dad, you don't have to— Yes, we do, my mother interrupted. You were right about what you said, about how I never just called to check on you or brag about your work. I haven't been the mother you deserved. The words lingered between us. I'd longed to hear them for years, yet now they felt bittersweet. I think we all got stuck in unhealthy patterns, I said carefully. Vanessa told us the truth about the wedding expenses, my father said, and that you came to apologize after realizing your mistake. That took character, Alicia, and honesty, something I should have practiced more. We're proud of you, my mother added. Your work, your independence, the way you've handled everything, we should have said that long ago. The words I'd waited my whole life to hear finally came, though they carried the weight of all that had gone unsaid. Thank you, I said quietly. That means a lot. Your grandmother wants to host a family dinner next weekend, my father continued. She's been worried about us since Thanksgiving. Would you come? Will Vanessa and Tyler be there? I asked. If you're comfortable with that, he said. I had considered it carefully. The idea of another family dinner still made me uneasy, but maybe it was time to rebuild instead of just reacting. All right, I said, but let's agree that family dinners should be about appreciating each other, not criticizing or comparing. Agreed, my mother responded quickly. The following Saturday, I found myself back at my grandmother's house, the same place where I'd spent countless childhood holidays, though this time it felt different. Vanessa and Tyler arrived together, holding hands but looking a bit tense. My parents were quieter than usual, clearly trying to give equal attention and kindness to both of their daughters. "Alicia," my grandmother said, taking me aside before dinner, "I'm proud of how you've handled everything. It takes courage to admit mistakes, but even more to forgive." "I'm still learning to forgive, Grandma," I admitted. "That's honest," she said with a smile. "But you're here, and that's what matters." During dinner, something unexpected happened. My father asked about my new work project and actually listened without interrupting. My mother praised Vanessa's new job, yet didn't minimize my achievements. Tyler talked about his music and his new freelance projects. Vanessa spoke about their counseling sessions without seeking sympathy. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward silences and cautious words. But for the first time in years, it felt like a step toward something healthier. After dinner, while I was helping with the dishes, Vanessa came into the kitchen. "I have something for you," she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. Inside was a $500 check and a handwritten note. "This is the first real payment toward what I owe you," she said softly. "Not just the money, but the respect and acknowledgement I should have given you long ago." The note was longer than any message she had ever written me. It mentioned specific things she appreciated, sacrifices I'd made, and promises she intended to keep to become a better person. "This is long overdue," she continued. "I can't change the past, but I want to do better. Tyler and I are learning to be more responsible, more honest, and more grateful to those who've helped us. How are things between you two?" I asked. "Better. Tougher but better," she said. "We're learning to talk about the hard things instead of avoiding them. We're trying to build a marriage that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or money." Looking at my sister, I noticed a real difference. Not just her physical changes, but something deeper. She seemed more grounded, more genuine. "I'm proud of you," I said sincerely. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." As we finished cleaning, I felt something I hadn't in years, hope for our relationship. Not the old version where I gave and she took, but one that felt balanced and honest. "Alicia," Vanessa said as we put away the last dish, "I know I don't deserve to ask this, but would you be open to having a different kind of relationship with me? Not as the sister who fixes everything, but as one who celebrates my growth and stands beside me." "I'd like that," I said. "But it has to go both ways. I need to feel appreciated too, not just needed." "Deal," she said, extending her hand. "Deal," I replied, shaking it. It was a small moment, but it felt like the start of something new. 6 months after that dinner, I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Your sister," I looked up, surprised. Vanessa rarely visited my workplace, and we hadn't planned anything. "Send her in," I said. She appeared in the doorway wearing a neat, professional dress I hadn't seen before, her hair perfectly styled, holding a small gift bag. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "Just boring spreadsheets," I smiled. "What brings you here?" "Two things," she said, handing me the bag. Inside was a framed photo from her wedding day. Not one of the usual posed ones, but a candid shot where I was in the background, smiling proudly as she exchanged vows. "I found this while going through old pictures," she said. "I realized I never gave you any photos from that day, which wasn't right. I wanted you to have this one. It shows what the day truly meant to both of us." The gesture moved me more than I expected. "Thank you," I said quietly. "It's perfect." "The second thing is bigger," she continued. "Tyler and I are buying a house. That's amazing." "Congratulations," I said. "We wanted to invite you to the housewarming, but more importantly, I wanted you to know we're paying for it entirely ourselves. No loans from family, no help from parents, just what we've saved and what we earned." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and I couldn't help but feel proud too. "That's incredible, Vanessa. I'm so happy for you both." "It's small and needs work," she said, smiling. "But it's ours. Tyler's freelance business is growing, and I've moved up to a better position at a marketing firm. We're finally living within our means, building something real." "How does it feel?" I asked. "Scary and exciting," she laughed. "But real. Like we're finally growing up." I got up to hug her, something that now came naturally between us. "There's one more thing," she said as we pulled apart. I made the final payment on what I owed you yesterday. We're officially even. That morning, I'd received a larger check than usual and wondered about it. You didn't have to finish paying it so soon, I said. Yes, I did, she replied. I wanted to start fresh and without debts, without guilt. And I needed to prove to myself that I could follow through. Looking at my sister, I realized how much she had grown. It wasn't just her circumstances. It was her character. The woman standing in my office appeared confident, grounded, and genuinely content, her happiness no longer tied to others' approval or financial help. I'm really proud of who you've become, I told her. I'm proud of who I've always been. Too, she replied. I just had to learn how to see it for myself instead of waiting for others to validate it. After Vanessa left, I leaned back in my chair, reflecting on how far we'd all come since that unforgettable Thanksgiving dinner. My relationship with my parents had improved greatly. They made a conscious effort to take interest in my life and achievements, while I learned to appreciate their attempts to change old habits. Tyler had grown into someone I genuinely respected. His honesty in recognizing his part in their financial troubles and his commitment to becoming more responsible truly impressed me. He and Vanessa seemed happy together, this time in a more balanced and mature way. As for me, I'd learned valuable lessons about the line between justified anger and lingering resentment. I discovered that sometimes uncomfortable honesty, even when imperfect, can lead to stronger, healthier relationships over time. My phone buzzed with a text from my grandmother. Family dinner this Sunday. Can you make it? Your aunt's baking her apple pie. I smiled and replied, wouldn't miss it. A year later, Vanessa and Tyler sent a photo from their first anniversary. It wasn't a lavish celebration, just a quiet dinner at home with a homemade cake. The caption read, "Celebrating 1 year of marriage and 6 months of full financial independence. Thank you for showing us what true family support means." Their transformation went far beyond money or marriage. It was about growth. They'd learned what it truly meant to be adults, partners, and family members. They built happiness on their own foundation rather than relying on others' sacrifices. And I learned that sometimes the most caring act toward family is refusing to enable dependency, even when it brings temporary discomfort. In the months following that Thanksgiving confrontation, our entire family faced deeper truths beyond financial conflict. My mother confronted how her favoritism had hurt both daughters and spent time in therapy, learning to rebuild fairer, more balanced relationships. My father, humbled by his role in our family's dysfunction, made real efforts to show equal pride and interest in both his children's accomplishments. Tyler dealt with the consequences of the wedding debt he had concealed, spending over a year restoring his credit and learning to be transparent about money with Vanessa. She, in turn, faced her toughest challenge, losing her financial cushion and the identity of being the protected child. It forced her to develop real independence and self-worth for the first time in her adult life. Looking back, I realized that explosive Thanksgiving dinner marked the turning point. It was the day I stopped being a product of my family's dysfunction and began building something healthier. The process was messy and often painful, but it was the foundation for genuine growth, honesty, and change.